episode 1000. I've done 1,000 of these. It is hard to believe. On top of that, it's my birthday, and it's day 3 of the draft. What a great day to be checking out Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. Justin's watching the All-Star game. I'm not going to be able to stay up super late. I'm feeling tired after a week of covering the draft. If you follow me on Twitter, at MLB Draft, as you can see on the screen, you know, I talked about every single player they drafted. I sat there in all of the post meetings with the assistant head of amateur scouting to ask questions, get information. It was a fun weekend. It was an interesting draft, and we'll have it covered. But let's bury the lead here. I'm Jeff Ellis, host of Locked On Guardians, as I have been since baseball was added to the Locked On Network. And I say that because 1,000 episodes. Now, were there like probably about 4 or 5 of these that I was not present for? Yes. But I had to be here for the 1,000th episode. I had to. I've been here since the beginning. It's probably actually like, episode 994 for me. Because we had some bonus ones from inside the network that we put up at points, or we had, there's 1 or 2 that Justin did without me. But for the most part, I've been here. As Justin's been a fantastic addition. And he'll be on, we're going to have tomorrow off because there's not much happening. And we gave you 2 shows on Monday. Then he's going to come back Friday. He's going to talk the All-Star game because I am not paying attention to that. And then he's going to do a preview of the second half. So I'm here because the draft is my thing. He'll probably also have some drafts in there. I'll have some thoughts in to put in. But I had to be here to do episode 1000, right? When you've been here for so long, that's part of it. I mean, I was still living in Ohio when I started this podcast. I didn't buy this house that I was in when I started doing this podcast. It was just a podcast. I think my first paycheck was like $23, for doing 30 episodes. So it's come a long way. It is a fantastic group of people I work with. I'm very happy to be here. The draft was an absolute blast. I hope we do it again that way next year. I want to thank you, I guess personally, I'm saying out to each and every dayer, people we talk to regularly. I know I'm super behind on the comments. It's draft week. It's crazy. Eventually I will respond to every single comment, but the reason I respond to all of the comments out there and I get to see who those everydayers are is because I've been around so long, and it's thank you. Thank you. Because there are points where I didn't know if I'd still have this. And it's only because listenership keeps getting bigger and you guys keep being awesome. And everyone has made this such a positive environment where, it's like 2 hours, 3 hours of work every night. But it doesn't always feel like work because Justin's fantastic and because the listeners are so cool. Having said that, let's dive into the draft. We have day 3 here. And it's interesting. I thought they'd go a little crazier. They didn't. It's kind of fascinating. Not a single guy in the MLB top 250. Typically, we've seen them go with a few, but this was a scouts day. This was a day where you trusted your scouts and they went for it. And it is interesting in that other regard where they only took 2 guys in the MLB top 100, Velasquez and Clemmy, and that was it. Next highest guy was Mooney, followed by Walters, and then CJ Kafis. So they ended up with 5 of the top 150. But they picked, they picked 4 times the top 150. That's not too bad. But yeah, this was the scouts day on day 2. And it started with Johnny Tincture. And before we got there, it was just like, I'm just sitting there watching. There goes Jack Payton. There goes Rico Nishida. I was like, oh man, everyone I wanted. And I didn't know Johnny Tincture well, I'll be honest. And I texted with Taylor, and Taylor's like, he's great. Now, we talked about Cooper Ingle being 5'10", and that's not ideal size for a catcher. Johnny Tincture is 5'8", so he's even smaller. But one of the things from talking with the assistant scouting director in that meeting, I didn't know, and I didn't see posted anywhere on him, is he's fluently bilingual. That's a big thing for catchers anymore. That is a really big thing. Every report I got on Tincture is like gritty grinder, future coach, works really hard. He's that guy. He's 5'8", which, is like their third 5'9" or smaller guy of the day. He's probably the second smallest guy in this draft after Tommy Hawk. And he wasn't ranked in the top 250, so that's why he didn't qualify for that tweet from earlier. But his whole life, he's going to be doubted at that size, and he just keeps proving people wrong. He's a sandpaper type, but he's a leader. He's a captain. He can do some impressive backflips. I tweeted those out. So he runs well. Good hit tool. Hit for a good average this year. I'm pulling up the notes the Guardian sent us as well, so I can get his exact stuff. That he had 10 home runs, 14 doubles, a 310 batting average, 387 on base, 53 games, and throwing out 12 runners this year. It doesn't say how many stolen bases he gave up, but yeah, he is just all Pac-12 all defensive team. He's a solid catcher, third catcher. What I've been calling for it. This team needs to draft catchers. They took 3. I love Velasquez to death. Absolutely love him. Like I said, that is my favorite pick. Cooper Ingle, it's a little bit of a harder path for me to go. Tincture's interesting. On day 3, I think he's a solid selection. In the 11th round, I was just surprised. Normally they go for a little more upside, a little more ceiling. This is a guy where he should probably go into low or high A. Velasquez is going to go to Arizona. But Tincture and Cooper Ingle, like maybe Ingle goes low A and Tincture goes high A. But these guys should go into the upper minors pretty quickly. But I think it's an interesting selection. Smarts, great teammate, decent athlete. It's just like if he was 6'1" instead of 5'8", it wouldn't be an issue. It's just, can he hold up? Came back in the 12th round with Keegan Zinn, a 6'3" pitcher from Lake Mineola High School in Florida, a two-way player. Not two. Yeah, he was a two-way player. I mean, almost everyone is a two-way player in high school. Let's be honest. But he was a multi-sport athlete, and I was trying to find information on him because he wasn't, the most noted guy. 6'3", 160, right-hander. But finding stuff, it looks like his dad is the JV coach there at Lake Mineola, so coach's son. Didn't see that listed anywhere else, but I read an article about a player there. And I mentioned Randy Zinn is the JV coach. I got to assume that's, if not his dad, he's got a relative who's the JV coach there. He's committed to Liberty, and they're going to sign him. He had a 19.97 strikeout per 9, which is pretty good to have 20 strikeouts per 9 on your average. He allowed just 1 home run in the last 2 years. So he was a productive player, turned 18 in March. Just someone that the Florida scout must have liked. Just kind of a typical right-handed pitcher. You're going to see if they can develop him and, what he has. A little more athletic than some of the other guys. Nothing wrong with this selection. Wasn't the most exciting one. The problem for me with Zinn is he was right between Tincture, who the more I read about and the more I got texted about, I loved, and then Jacob Bresnahan, who the first bits of information I got seemed out of date, and I want to spend some time on him because I think he's one of their most interesting selections, honestly. So Zinn is just, unfortunately for him, between the two guys that maybe, I don't know if I want to say they're the most interesting, because Kyle Scott's really interesting, as is Barrett Reebok. I mean, everyone here is at least kind of interesting. There was no dull picks today for the Guardians. Bresnahan, I first got that he was like 5'11" and hit 84. And then I found out, no, he's 6'4" lefty who touches 92. I think I got corrected by one of their scouts, which is fine because I had bad info. So I told him I'm going to delete my tweet, and I'd rather have good and correct information than wrong information. So when you're looking at Bresnahan, he's a two-sport guy, a more accomplished two-sport guy, committed to the University of Oregon, just turned 18 at the end of June, so young for his class. He was a 4A, led the school to the 4A state championship game. They were runner-up. That's the best his school has ever done. And I was trying to see if they don't have his velocity in here, but he was a guy who just seemed to get bigger and stronger, and there was better information on kind of late in the process. I tweeted out an article that had some really great information. One of the interesting things is one of his favorite activities is chess. So he'll fit right in with other people in Cleveland's clubhouse. I'm just going to just pull up the exact bit here, but yeah, the first bits of information I had were off. So if you saw some of my early takes and you're like, hey, that's not what I heard, it's because I had bad info, and you got to own that. And the thing is always to make sure you get it right in the end. And I feel like I got it right in the end. And when I got it right at the end, I saw exactly why the Guardians like this kid. And that is he's gotten bigger late. He is adding velocity. throws hard, a little bit under the radar, good curve, good student, cold weather. I think was it him specifically that like he didn't want to throw the curveball, and I heard a story about like his dad saying that he should throw it more, and that was he kind of resisted, didn't want to listen to his dad. Slider, curve, change, loose, easy delivery. That comes from my buddy Taylor Blake Ward. Yeah, he's a good, solid left-hander, good athleticism. That's kind of why I liked that pick. I think there's a lot to build on with him. Speaking of things we need to build on, I need to build on a commercial break. We're going to come back from that, and I still got 7 more guys to talk about. So buckle in, have fun on today's Locked On Guardians. Bird dogs. So I don't have anything bird dogs on me today. The day one of the draft, I had my coffee mug, the Yeti one that you get for free when you use the promo code Locked On when you get your pants, and that's what I was drinking some nice cold brew coffee through, so I could stay awake through the draft. It kept it cold. It keeps a good temperature, and it's a nice thermos. But that's just secondary. Got to be honest here. The best thing are the shorts. That's what I wore on day 2 of the draft because I knew that's the day I was going to sit the longest. So I was wearing those, and they're just great all-purpose shorts. They're my favorite shorts. Bird Dog sent us 2 pairs. Every time they're clean, they are worn. They're the best shorts I own. They have made me a fan of theirs. They're comfortable. They're, you look good in them. They have a, the inner lining helps you look better. So it's not just that it's like, hey, these are a really comfortable short. If it was just that, great. But it's the fact that it helps you look better. You can use it for any occasion. You can, Justin took him on his honeymoon. I have fallen asleep in mine. They're so comfortable. It is a fantastic piece of clothing. It is my favorite shorts. And that's not because they're an ad. That is like legitimately, these are my favorite shorts. If you saw me on the streets, you'd see me in them. When I come back to Ohio this summer with family, I'm packing both my bird dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or enter promo code LockedOnMLB for the free Yeti style tumbler with your order, which is again a great secondary item that you get completely free. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB or promo code LockedOn for a free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take off your bird dogs, we promise. And your reminder to check out the second half of the season on SiriusXM Radio. Just type Guardians into their search and it'll take you right to it. So we gotta dive in here. Bresnahan, Tincture, Keegan's in, all interesting guys. All, like I said, none of them like top 250 ranks, but that doesn't always matter. These are guys that the scouts went out and found. This was a day for the scouts. And we'll get to like some of those really scouty guys later on. Next up, Zane Morehouse. He's already 23. He's an older player, but he bounced around a bit. He's a starter reliever. I had a report from someone who's like, I think there could be more there. So I asked the assistant scouting director, Paul Fitzgerald, I believe is his name. I'm having a bit of a senior moment. It's been a long few days. It's like, I know he's 23 in age and that's older, but isn't he like younger in pitcher years because he's bounced around so much? He hasn't had consistency. And he agreed. He's like, yeah, no, 100%. That's the case. Fastball, slider. They said he's undefined on what he'll be, which is what they said also about Jay Driver. And I think that's interesting because I interpret both those guys going to the bullpen. Like if they're a starter, they would say they're a starter. And there's some command issues with Morehouse in his career at Texas, but it's a very good fastball and a lot of movement on that slider. He was an occasional closer for them. I think you're betting on getting more. Texas's recent developmental history is not great. Let's just be honest. This is a situation where we have seen some guys from Texas not quite live up to billing. Tyler Wells this year, Tanner Witt, you can't blame them. He came back from injury. But we've seen a lot of guys kind of slip in their final year at Texas. Ty Madden, is a recent high pick from there. So I don't think it's necessarily a strong place for development, and people think there's more in his, he's 6'4", 200. So you get that fastball slider as 2+ pitches. I mean, this is a potential back end ace type, which I know people are gonna be like, great, 3 relievers in the top 14 with Andrew Walters. Never have enough relievers, and they're always a tradable asset. And by the time most of these guys are ready, guys like Enyel and 99 are going to be off their contracts. They'll be done. They'll be looking for the next. You have to keep that pipeline running because relievers are so expensive to buy. So I like that pick. Next up, Kyle Scott, Lackawanna College in Pennsylvania. I'd never heard of it. I'll be honest. Didn't know Kyle Scott at all. texted or DM'd, I should say, my good buddy and the king of the of JUCO data, Brian Sikowski over at Perfect Game. I, there's some colorful metaphors to describe how good his stuff is. Just very inconsistent. I won't use the exact wording because I'd be in trouble here, but they have some data over from Perfect Game. His fastball was 92 to 96. In the press conference, they said he was touching upper 90s. Slider 78 to 81, but 28 rotations per minute. That's above average. Curveball 73 to 76 at 320. That is way above average. That curveball bites. So it's the secondary pitches are utterly fantastic. He's 6'1", 220, a little undersized. Going to need a little bit more from him. But my goodness, looking at what he has in terms of spin and velocity, and there's conflicting data on him, so it's a little bit hard in terms of just stats. But if my stats are right, 14 Ks per 9 last year. The walks were a little bit higher, but he has a really interesting arm. Just finished his sophomore year. Couldn't see where he's committed to in any of the data I looked at. I should check the Guardians one. But you're betting on what they've seen in those outings this year. Yes, it's a lower JUCO level, so I think it was listed as JUCO 3. I didn't realize JUCO kind of had that. But you're betting on when you see those spin rates and that velocity. And he is, I would have never thought to scout Lackawanna College. Kudos to the scouts who discovered and found him, spent that time. Yeah, I just don't have the time to get in the JUCO guys. Next up, Mac Hewer might have been their most famous pick of the day. He's a guy who's been known for a while, 6'4", 230, solidly built kid. Another guy who a lot of people think might be a reliever long-term. He is homeschooled. So a lot of his stuff was from the Future Star series or basically from events. He's a guy who shows up at events. He is 19, turned 19 on the 7th. So when they go and get a guy who goes against type, we know they like age-based models. I've always said, look at those guys that they go against type. If they think he is good enough, in spite of the fact that we know that 17 is a big negative, then that should say something about that player. So Hewer right now, I believe, is fastball, slider, mostly. He's the reason he's homeschooled, before anyone gets, conspiracy theory or anything like that. His family owns a huge ranch. They're, I believe, meat farmers in general. He's a 4-H kid. He's, out working on the farm, helping out his family. And yeah, he's a big, strong kid. Throws the ball hard, really can shove it, as they say, for throwing it hard. And you send him out as a starter. If it doesn't work out, he's got a great reliever profile. But I see what they like with him because it's fastball slider. What do they like? Fastball slider. It's a really good fastball, really good slider. And I think he is, a very interesting kid. And again, probably the most famous guy. I mean, maybe Tincture because he played at a major program. But other than him, no major. And Morehouse is a Texas, but he's a reliever. So I think, Mac Hewer in the draft scene was probably the most famous guy on this list. Made some people's top 200s. Next up, Barrett Rybach. I did not know at all. So I also, going back to Brian Sikowski, and here's the exact quote from Brian over at Perfect Game. Brian does JUCO better than anyone. Love Rybach, speedy, very good defender in center field, contact overpowered, good tools. His coach says plus makeup. Now, I saw some conflicting reports on his age. The one place had him as being 16 on his high school draft day. The checker we'll go with the MLB draft tracker one, which says that he is soon to be 21. So that would be different than the soon to be 19 that is listed elsewhere. But yeah, he stole 59 bases this past year. He hit over 400 in the JUCO ranks, 467 this year, 423, 58 stolen bases. Yeah, I mean, this guy, he won the JUCO Gold Glove in the outfield. He's committed to go to Oklahoma, go into a major program. He's a really good get. No doubt center fielder, played all 3 spots, gets on base, does not strike out. I know it's not the most exciting, but he is 6'2", 190. He's bigger. He's growing. It's a good profile. If you had a problem with it, I understand Paris, JUCO in Texas, maybe not a place that is as well known, but great performance, good tools, great reports, high level production, and committed to go to a major program. Those all stand out to me. We're going to take our next break here. We're going to come back and talk about 3 more pitchers in this year's draft class on today's Locked On Guardians. It is never easy to ask for help. And I first want to start out by saying that this episode is sponsored or brought to you by BetterHelp. And it's right there in the name, right? When you're feeling down, sometimes it's hard to talk about what's bothering you, or you feel embarrassed by it. Listen, there's all things that get us down that we feel embarrassed by. I think I mentioned before, like I felt my heart beating out of my chest. I had so much anxiety the first time I hopped into one of these team conferences to talk with, the Paul Hoynes and Mandy Beller asking questions. I never turned my camera on because of my self-conscious issues, but I asked my questions. Justin did as well. But it's things like that. It's sometimes you need someone who isn't family, who doesn't have to be nice, to just talk to you, give you someone who can help you work through things and maybe help you change your mindset or give you tools to help you in those situations. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to fit your schedule. And listen, in real life, I've had this happen where I've had a therapist and we just didn't gel. And then you have to pay. And it's hard to go through the process sometimes of finding a new one and, going to a new location. Guess what? BetterHelp, you don't have that problem. They just switch your therapist. No problem. No questions asked. No extra charge. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. And a reminder to check out all the games in the second half on Sirius XM Radio. Just type Guardians in and they will have you taken care of. Speaking of taken care of, I hope episode 1000 is exciting for you guys as it is for me. I still can't believe we are 1,000 in, but I know you're here for the draft. And I want to thank everyone who hung out with me during the draft, sent me questions, to those everydayers. I don't want to mention names because I don't have everyone off the top of my head, but to the people who did super chats, I'm still blown away by that. It's days later and I'm like, wow. Here's what I like. The comments, I almost never have to delete. And if I do have to delete someone making personal attacks in our comments, it's someone who I've never seen before. The Locked On Guardians, whole group, the everydayers, and just people who catch us from time to time, just a great group of human beings. And I just want to say I appreciate you all. And I hope you've enjoyed the draft content. I know some people, it's not their favorite. So make sure you comment below. Who was your favorite pick? Did you like the draft content? Do you want more next year? Because I can always maybe throw some Saturday bonus shows because that's always, draft content is what I love. If you want less, I don't know if I can help you with that, but, comment, let us know. So let's get back into it. We have the last 3 picks in this draft. Matt Jack, Jachek. My dyslexia, it's hard sometimes, from Indiana State. Crazy thing about him is he almost doubled his walk rate this year from a year ago. And I say the crazy thing about him is that because he was still 12th in the nation in walks per 9, it was like 1.4. Last year it was 0.8. Both years he was a starter. 5'11" righty. He's going to turn 21 at the end, or 22 at the end of the month. My bad. Senior sign here. And what have we talked about recently on this podcast is this team has a backfill issue. Like Austin Peterson, Parker Messick probably shouldn't have still been in high A. There's other pitchers in high A, but they don't have guys they can push up and go. Much like with Adam Talak a year ago, and I'm blanking on the other guy that took. What I like about Jachek is he's a Guardians type. He has command control. Maybe they can find a gear and get more. And then maybe he's a better prospect than I'm giving him credit for. That is very possible. But if he's not, he's a guy who can go to low A, like they did with someone like Talak last year, and help you push up some of those other guys like Peterson. Like, not a knock on Jachek, but Peterson was a 9th round pick. He was a day 2 guy. You want that guy moving up. There's no reason for him to still be an A-ball. So I like this pick because he fits their approach. He fits their models. He's a guy where they might be able to get more of. He's going to be undervalued because he's a sub 6-foot right-hander. Impeccable command and control. Impeccable. And you look at those numbers, again, 12th best walk rate in the country. That's when it nearly doubled for him. And it's still the 12th best in the country. He was really good this year in general. And, he was also an all defensive team selection and a scholar athlete. So smart kid, defends his position well. Hopefully we see him actually pitch this year. Now, a guy we likely will see pitch this year is the next selection, Josh Harlow, Mercer University, Georgia. He was actually at the beginning of this month at Arkansas. He's in the transfer portal. I don't think he's transferring. I think he's going to sign. Cleveland is a team that signs all of their picks. Let me just say that now. Don't ask, so is McHugh going to be hard to sign? Yeah, but they're getting it done. I actually thought they'd have more money to spend than this. I always underestimate how much guys are going to cost, though, so that should be no surprise. But they're going to get everyone signed. Harlow is, he's one of those many players that was affected by 2020. He's got that extra year of eligibility. He might have been able to get an extra year for this year because he missed most of this season. After one of the scariest injuries pitcher could have, he took a line drive off the face, and it caused him to miss a good chunk of the year. I didn't know what the injury was, and line drives off of players don't often get reported. I remember when that happened with Pat Light at University of Akron, I had to ask when I was in the press box, "What's the deal?" And they're like, "Well, he got hit in the face," and I'm like, "But it's not you're not going to show that video, thank goodness." But it sometimes doesn't always get reported. So that's what happened with Harlow. He is, another guy who is technically a 4-year senior, but had another year of eligibility. He's performed very well at Mercer the past couple of years. This year, due to that injury, he just didn't get those opportunities. Early in the season, he was the Southern Conference Pitcher of the Week. The same week, the hitter was somebody I knew when I was looking at that. Is a big name in the draft. But he has been a good performer for multiple years at Mercer. And again, much like with JUCO, this helps that backfill problem. This helps them get some guys, and especially with Harlow, because he didn't pitch much this year. Once he signs, he should immediately go to low A. He should be there immediately because he needs more innings. He only did 3 to 4 starts this year, I want to say. He is a guy that needs those extra innings, and he should just immediately go and perform. Oh, I forgot to mention Kyle Scott is currently pitching in the Cape. I don't think we'll get to see him pitch anymore in the Cape, by the way. But some of these players were already in the Cape going right now. And the final pick is Ryan Marone. Hopefully I got that right. A lefty, 6'2". Harlow 6'3". I don't think I mentioned that. Matt Hewer 6'4". So a bit more size today. But he was a North Carolina NC State commit, which again, big program. So that also reflects on just the type of player he is, and that he is he may not be a ranked guy that if you're getting to go to a program like that, you're a pretty good pitcher. Low 90s fastball, slider, curve, and change for him. And this past year, he had a 0.35 ERA. So that's pretty good. High school career, 103 strikeouts to 14 walks. Now it's high school, so he was also he was the Class 6 All-State baseball team in Virginia. This team needed more lefties. Wasn't that what someone told me that was the ESPN graphic that was the weakness in the system? Well, here's an interesting left-handed pitcher that they added, as well as with Harlow and JUCO. Now Marone here will go to complex league. These other two guys should go to low A and help out with some of that backfill. They added, in general, we talked about yesterday was all pitching, or all hitting, I should say, that, they added Jay Driver and Wilkinson at the end, and then it was a bunch of hitters, specifically mostly ACC guys. Today, they had 10 selections, and they took only 2 hitters, Reebok and Tincher, and they took 8 pitchers. And then they were, I think, was it 4 high school guys, 2 JUCO guys, and 4 college guys. So a very even split there as well. And like I said, this was a scouts day. These were not, like I said, Morehouse is at Texas, Tincher is at Washington. That's kind of names. Hewer was known. And if you're diving deep on things like Perfect Game and stuff, those are kind of known guys. But this was definitely a class that is, I think, a scouts class. This is the one where the scouts did the damage. I want to thank you all for being with me for 1,000 episodes. I'm going to keep saying it because I don't know, it feels like an amazing accomplishment. It is just unbelievable that you people out there still want to hear me chat and talk. We are gaining followers all the time and moving up the rankings in terms of the Locked On podcast. So I just, again, want to express my appreciation to the Locked On Guardians team. We do have a new Apple review. I'm going to have to get to that next week, but I want to thank you to anyone who leaves an Apple review. I read that. thank you all for being fantastic, and make sure that, well, we're going to have an off day tomorrow, that you give yourself some off days and that you take care of yourself out there. I really do appreciate all of you, and go Guardians, go 1,000 times, 1,000 episodes.